right, everybody. Thanks for coming. You probably know who this is, but you probably maybe have no idea who I am. Does anyone have any idea who I am? Oh, we got a few. It's like almost 50%. That's awesome. My name is Meredith. I am one of the founders of Tactic Nutrition and Tactic Fitness. The other founder is there. That's my wife, Alex. She won't do talks with me because she doesn't think I do enough preparation. So. You have notes. I have notes. She
was last night.
No. Yesterday.
I didn't have notes.
Yeah, we're good. So I kind of live with this recurring theme that continues to show up, where I find myself in moments and in opportunities that don't make a ton of sense. Like, why am I here? Maybe it's hard work. I find it hard to believe it's not a little bit of luck. So what I try to do is honor those opportunities and moments, whether they're luck or hard work. And that's what I'll do here today. Thank you for being here in this moment. Thank you guys for being here in this moment. It means a lot. So I've been racking my brain about how to start this, because you're Rebecca Rusch and I'm me. And we have some overlaps, but we don't have a ton of overlaps because I just have not accomplished what you have.
I have a few more years on you, decades on you.
Also that. Maybe I'll get there. We could talk about my athletic career, we could talk about professional career, we could talk about those overlaps, but that lacks some oomph for me. What I think that I bring to the table and to the conversation, and Alex as well, is our work with people individually. So with our company, with Tactic and our coaches, we have worked with over 4,000 people individually. So we have a lot of experience having conversations with people, and a lot of women. And even though the work is one-on-one and we exist on islands, there's patterns that are really hard to ignore. And one of the patterns that continues to come up is this reluctance for women to take up space, whether that's in their careers, but like most significantly in their own lives and in their free time, and for themselves and their health and their well-being. And that's kind of where I thought we could have an interesting conversation, because this theme impacts people on an individual level, but also obviously like athletes experience it, women experience in their professional lives. And in your email, when we were discussing this topic, you talked about women being disruptors and having to create a little bit of chaos to create change. And I think that's absolutely accurate. So I guess to kick it off, there's a quote made famous by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it wasn't her quote, but it said, "I ask nothing for my sex. All I ask is that my brethren remove his foot from our neck." And it's a great quote. I think the real flaw there is waiting for someone to remove their foot. I think women have to remove the foot themselves. And that's where we're at. That's the disruption. That's the chaos. And that's what causes a lot of chatter and pushback in the space. So that's where we'll start the conversation.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's a good quote.
You've been here a long time. You've been in a variety of athletic spaces, but you take up a lot of space yourself. You've accomplished a lot. And so my first question is a question about a question, and that is, are you ever asked, what's the path? How did you do it? And then how do you respond to a question like that when people are trying to understand like how you do what you do, how you take up space?
I am asked all the time, what's the path, or what are you going to be when you grow up? Maybe it's another way to spin that of like, what are you doing? And I haven't been the kind of person who's had a real distinct path. My sister went into medical and then into military, so she is very regimented. I've not been that way, but our similarity has always been to going into spaces that we're passionate about. And so there wasn't really a path other than things that interested me or excited me, whether it was rock climbing or climbing a tree as a kid, or putting on a bike event, as one of the only women founders of a big bike event. And it wasn't really planned that way. It was really just the spaces I wanted to be in. And to your quote, someone in the parking lot just over there when I was changing for my bike clothes coming over here, two guys, they came up and they said to me, they're like, "Wow, we watched your film Blood Road last night in our condo, and he also said, I read your book, and the co-author of my book is here, Celine Yeager, and it's been out a while, but he paid me a really nice compliment, and this was a gentleman maybe in his 60s, and he read the book, and he said, I really love the way that yeah, it was about you. It was about your experiences and your adventures, but you weren't bragging about yourself. And it was one of the biggest compliments I could have ever heard, because I really struggle sometimes between being loud, taking up space, being in the room, but also being like, look, it's not about me. It's about me doing fun stuff, but other people doing things that we want to do. And I thought that was a really unique compliment that just happened. Celine wrote the book with me, and I remember we talked about that, where I don't want it just to be about how many things I won or I want people to take something away from it. And so she helped craft it into adventure stories and things. And, so that is the theme of kind of doing the stuff I want to do and not feeling held back by that, and sort of pushing and being like, okay, I'll just try harder. I'll just put myself in this space where there aren't any women yet. And then it was about, can I bring other people along? Because it's a lot more fun to see, like gravel racing is a great example. The first Unbound that I went to, I was third overall, and like 2 minutes behind the winner, the lead men. And that's not to brag on me, it's just there weren't any women there at the elite level. And now you look at the level of Unbound and holy cow, I'm glad I'm not racing those women right now, but there's 50 women who are going really, really fast speeds. And so it makes me really happy to see that group. It's kind of lonely sometimes out there, but then I'll also shift to, I think a lot about what is sharing the magic and the power and the gift that you have versus what is bragging or like, hey, look at me. And from the surface, you're doing the same thing, like, I did this thing, but is your motivation behind it to get accolades back or to give the inspiration to somebody else? And so it's the same coin, but I really think about how it's flipped, and I think about that a lot with sharing, because this is sometimes hard for me to do all this, but it's really important when I look around and I'm like, oh, people showed up. I even said that when you guys were here. And so I think a lot about that we shouldn't hide our gifts, and I know I'm guilty of it. A lot of women are guilty of it, you're hiding your light, and it's not, the people that are around you are not benefiting from the magic that all of us bring into the world.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm glad that you brought that up, because especially the end, because I do feel a real resistance from women to be proud, even just be proud of themselves. So, not every woman is going to go out and finish top 3 in Unbound. Like, some women are just like, it's a real win if they can get out and just ride a bicycle, or even get out and go for a walk, or do something positive for themselves. But even that, there's a reluctance to be like, yeah, I'm proud of myself for doing that. And so, on a really grand scale, you can bring a lot of people into these spaces by sharing it, and that's what you do. But then you have women who, they don't have an audience, they'll never have an audience, but they do have other people in their lives. They have other women, they have kids, they have people who, like that, their light means a lot and changes potentially the course of those people's journeys. And so that's where that reluctance to sharing and being proud and putting that out there is really impactful on like a personal level too.
I always tell people, like, everyone is a mentor and a mentee for your whole life. You're taking something from other people, you're learning something, and you're also giving it back. And I also had another person who was talking to me yesterday and talking about the concept of impact that we make. And you can make a really broad impact on social media. Maybe you get 1 billion likes and you do this and it's super broad and you're like, yay, a bunch of people hit a button. But there's no depth to that impact. And so you may impact one child, one person. Our Girls Mentor group is 4 girls. But I guarantee their lives are going to be changed from this experience. So it's great to have big numbers and feel like you're making big impact, but I feel like deep impact is really more important. And every single person, all of us are doing that with the people around us, our kids, our grandmothers, our dogs, our friends that we get into riding. You make a deep impact on someone and you change their life. And we kind of think like, oh, well, it's just me, like I don't make that much impact. But I remember my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Green. I still remember her name because she actually said to me, don't hide your light under a bushel barrel. because I was really shy in class, and like I still remember that one. I don't remember anything else from school, but I remember that Mrs. Green said not to hide your light. So we don't even know the impact that we make on a level, and sort of. I'm glad you're all here, because you're going to go out and you're going to go ride bikes tomorrow, and you know, maybe you'll have a deep impact on somebody that you may never meet again.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful perspective. From like in going after that impact, or I guess not going after it, because I find people who chase impact or they set out to inspire rarely do that. You inspire through just being authentic and living and you know, being a representation of your values. I find that women, you know, athletes especially, have to be really entrepreneurial during their pursuit of athletics. So that you have to be constantly thinking about what's next, what's my next move, what happens after I retire. I mean, the Abby Wambach ESPY speech with Peyton Manning and Kobe Bryant is a perfect example, because after she said, I didn't know why, when I accepted that Icon Award, I felt so, you know, sad about it, or I just felt some kind of way, I was mad. And it's because she later said, I realized that it was 3 athletes, the same sweat, the same blood, the same time, 3 very different retirements. In that she was like, I don't know how I have to figure out what I'm going to do to make money. And Kobe and Peyton obviously don't. And so there's that entrepreneurial thing. You don't just get to play your sport. Like, you have to be a businesswoman. And that's also, like, that's a theme that, I mean, women, even who aren't athletes, live with that. You have to be doing so many different things. And I wonder if you ever faced, on any level, resistance in that way, just having to not only be Rebecca Rusch, the athlete, but also the businesswoman, and making decisions about where we're going.
It's the only reason I'm here. It's the only reason I've had a long-term career, is because, yeah, I was an athlete. I was winning races. I was running a business. I was, running a household. I was trying to make money. I was a part-time firefighter. Yeah, like, there's a lot of people now that are like, I'm going to be a privateer, and they're like, we're on a big sponsored team, and then they're going to be an individual athlete, and they're able to make a living at it, which is really awesome. That is a new thing. That is really rare, because you do have to be an entrepreneur. I think anyone, athlete or non-athlete, if you're following a passion, whether you're a writer, you're an artist, you're opening a business, it does require a lot of multitasking and a lot of entrepreneurship. We're just now, this is 12 years of Rebecca's Private Idaho, we're just now at a place where I can sit and have this conversation and not be worried about what's going on over there, or doing registration at the same time. So it takes a long time. But again, I'll go back to the passion. If you want something and you care about it, you put in the extra work and you put in the extra time. Something I find that I'm not great at, and I find a lot of strong independent women is asking for help and saying, can you help me with this? Because I can't do it. I had to do it last night. I asked Era, I'm like, can you do the majority of the speeches? Because I'm not up for it. And she nailed it. And I was like, why didn't I do that before? Like, that was so awesome. And so asking for help, it's a balance of, is this weakness and admitting failure and admitting I can't do it all? Or is it really just elevating everyone else? So I think that's the message I really want to take to women and everyone, is that there's no like pride or badge of honor in doing everything alone. You're just going to get really tired and burnt out. And it's actually really cool. As I've started asking for help, Celine's another great example. In our podcast series we're launching on concussion, and Feisty Media had this story I wanted to tell, but I couldn't tell it. And so I asked for some help, and now it's happening. So that's been a real, because my whole career, I've done it all. I've had to do everything. I've had to do everything. It's at a point where I'm like, oh, people will help. Like, people actually want to help. And I think about it, I used to do a lot of adventure racing, and it's 4-person teams. Usually I was the only woman, and you carry your own backpack and your own stuff for days. You're just carrying your supplies. And it was I was the smallest person, so it was common that sometimes they would carry my backpack, and I always hated it. It's like, no, I want to be equal. But John Jacoby's 200-pound burly man carrying the same exact mandatory equipment as I'm carrying, and he's like, I don't mind doing it. I love it. It's great. And it it's that concept of accepting help. That doesn't mean you're weak. It's actually balancing a load. You know, if Celine is better at something and we're partnering and I'm better at something else, yeah, let her do what she's good at. But it's very hard for strong, independent people to say, yes, you can take my backpack. We will easily say, I'll take yours, I'll help, what can I do? Can I do more? You need help with that? I'll do it. I was doing it with Era. She was doing it with me last night. We're like, no, we each got our own jobs. But it's harder to receive the help or ask for it than it is to give it. And I don't know if you experienced that, but that's something I'm working on right now.
Yeah, I mean, we live in this like hyper-competitive world, and that's the same for everybody. And it's, you know, it's that like that Darwin, like survival of the fittest. And so it's, you know, it's eat the weak. It's don't talk about your weakness because then people will treat you differently. But you know, what has actually gotten our society to the place that it is more, it's the prisoner's dilemma, which is you have to work together as communities and as one collective in order to advance forward. And so I think that's like, personally, I think that's the source of a lot of tension that human beings live with, is we're drawn biologically to be together, and yet we're told that we need to be fighting one another for opportunities and for attention and for space. And yeah, asking for help on the most basic level is stepping up back into what we are designed to do, which is to help one another. And especially women. Women get it so rough. Like, we're just kind of, you know, we're meant to clash and fight for the attention of men. I don't know. I don't fight for the attention of men, but that's a different story, I guess. But that's been, you know, that's kind of what we're here for, right? Is to get the best mate, and it's just wrong. All of it's really wrong. And there are societies where there are these cohorts of women that have really strong communities, and that's a totally different situation than we live with in the Western world. So I think that's, you know, Don Staley, the basketball coach.
Oh, yeah.
That quote, when women supporting women, or women support women, everybody wins, something like that. I could not be more true. So, and I think that women athletes and like the women's sports space especially is just like really leveling up because of that support.
Well, we're seeing, I mean, it's friggin' so awesome to watch the Olympics and watch the Tour de France Femme. I mean, holy crap.
Yeah.
Most exciting sports I've watched in a really long time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just women watching women in the Olympics, it was everybody. And the Tour de France Femme coverage this year, I've never seen anything. I mean, I have seen something like it. It's the men's Tour de France, but the level of coverage and communication, it's been a long time coming. But there's no going back now. This year was really exciting.
Yeah, I think for people who are like maybe not as involved or just kind of casually paying attention, it feels like this kind of came out of nowhere. But I think that, you know, and like people who follow women's sports know it didn't come out of nowhere. It came, I mean, it's been 100 years to get to this point, literally.
Right. I mean, how long have women been trying to get the vote? How long have women been trying to get equal pay? It still isn't there. How long have women been trying to get equal opportunity? And so what we're seeing now, the athletes and women are there participating. The next big step for me, the next big gap is that women in leadership, women in coaching, women in executive positions, because you still do see a huge disparity there. And I think Women's Sports Foundation put something out that this was the first Olympics. Obviously, I think we all know this, that it was 50-50 male-female participation. But when they looked at female coaches, it's like 3% or something. And so hopefully all those athletes now, it's going to take them a minute, but they're going to move into the coaching roles, and we're going to start to see this layer up. But it all started with participation, with people showing up and going on a bike ride.
So it's all this, like, it's systemic bias against women, in addition to the more overt ways that women are pushed out of certain careers. And that's absolutely the case in athletics. I mean, there's still like 30% of parents, over 30% of parents believe that boys are better at sports. And those are people with kids.
Ouch.
It's nuts.
So what do you do?
That's the question. I actually have this written down.
Okay.
So what do we do about that? That's the $1 million question. But I think you did touch on it earlier when you were talking about mentoring and sort of leading by example, because that's the sticking point. Is there aren't women in certain spaces to pull women up and show them how to do things. There's no pipeline. There are not many people setting the example. So I think when you have the opportunity to set the example, you do everything that you can to set the example.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice kind of bringing it back around to that everyone is a mentor, everyone has an impact. Somebody sees you doing something in a career maybe that they're interested in, and they'll remember that. So I think that's a nice way. It doesn't feel like you're doing enough, you know? But it is that one person touching someone else and being like, hey, do you want me to show you this?
Yeah.
Or,
I don't know if you remember the movie Hidden Figures. I don't know if you ever saw that, about the NASA, the 3 black women. They were called human computers at the time, but they were basically, because NASA at one point thought that basically like calculating and statistical modeling was a lot more similar to like secretary work, and so that's why a lot of women were brought in to do that kind of work. But these 3 black women came in, and it's their story, and all 3 of them faced like not only discrimination but like actual like workplace violence. They had to deal with, you know, segregated workplaces. They weren't allowed to use the same bathrooms. They were in different offices. They had to go eat somewhere else, and they kept showing up. And then all 3 of them went on after their careers with NASA to basically just open doors for other women of color into that career, because they didn't want anyone to experience the difficulty that they experienced. And that was back in the 60s. So it's been happening. It's just taking a really long time, because women have to be careful with how they do it too. Like, I think you want to just like kick the door down and be like, get out of the way, but you can't do that, because we fight against the way that women are perceived by our societies as well, which is unfortunate. Have you ever kicked a door down? I guess.
not literally.
Figuratively.
But it made me think of, you know, it's, for me, it's not get out of the way. It's like, can we work together? You know, I bring something to the table, you bring something to the table. And I think that if there's a scarcity mindset, that's why executives don't want to let women in, or, you know, or women don't want to bring somebody else or competitive against them because it doesn't seem like there's enough space for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really dangerous part of, like, there isn't one spot, you know? I mean, yes, there's competition for jobs, there's, you know, not everyone's going to get the sponsor, but the scarcity mindset actually, I think, hurts people. It doesn't help people. But it's a competition too. I don't know. Anyone have comments on that? It's like a really sort of sticky sort of situation of, like, to claim your space, but do you have to push somebody else out, you know, to have a little room? I see Meg Fisher's brain going.
She's in it.
I can feel it.
Every sense for pie. It's not that there's less pie. It's everybody gets pie.
Yeah.
You work to make the pie bigger.
Yeah, if you work to make a bigger pie,
That's
it's not less pie, it's more pie.
That's a really good concept, and that more does get done when more people are in the room and there's more diverse voices in the room. Then things start to elevate. Because I also, you know, people were like, I used to do women's mountain bike events a long time ago, and they were like, well, why? Well, that's just reverse discrimination. Like, you're not letting the guys come in. And I'm like, well, they have all the other events already, so we're doing this to make a welcome space, but we did actually have to say, okay, it's open to everyone. These are women's focused things, and we had a few guys show up. Last year at Sea Otter, we did a really cool open discussion that was just about women in the bike industry and the lack of diversity and leadership in the bike industry, and the crowd was great because there were a lot of men and a lot of women and a lot of different people in the audience who were, it was just more reflective of society, and that was really encouraging for me to see companies who don't have any women in leadership but have the men showing up and going, okay, what do we do? So they're showing up, and that was hopeful for me. So, and they weren't afraid of losing their job. They were like, no, we want to welcome more people in, but we don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see those conversations going on, you know, around, you know, LGBTQ sort of rights and inclusion. You see those conversations happening around race. Like, I think people do want to do the right things, but it's like, It's how do you do the right thing while also recognizing that you're part of a broken system, and then working against that broken system to repair it without impacting your career and livelihood. Like, it's a really delicate sort of dance that you have to do, and I can understand why it's, on a level, why it does take some time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go back to, like, we should all go on a bike ride together. Like, literally, it breaks down so many barriers to just go be active with someone. And that's what I love about these types of events is, yeah, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to break a PR. That's awesome. I love that stuff. I'm a competitive athlete. But mostly it's a bunch of people getting together, doing a thing together that has no boundaries, really. The bike really has no boundaries. And so it is kind of like, can't we all just go on a bike ride and get together? I mean, you see anyone who, if you remember your first bike ride as a kid, I remember mine, and somebody letting go of the back, and then all of a sudden freedom is what I felt. That's the word, freedom. And I still feel that when I ride a bike. So, I mean, I would love to hear your life-changing story on a bike. Do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I've come back around to bikes. I did a lot of riding when I was in high school, a little bit of racing, and then sort of fell out of it in my mid-20s. I got into CrossFit competition and did that at a really high level. And then if you know anything about that community, it can be a really negative space, like a really, really toxic space. And I felt lost for about 2 years after. I didn't know what to do, because I was like, this part of my identity is this thing that I'm really good at, but I really hate what it represents on many, many levels. But I kept doing it, and I kept going back to it because I don't know who I am. And then it was literally it was COVID and getting back on a mountain bike, because we live in a great area for that I was able to just kind of let that go. And it changed. I mean, the bicycle changed our life. It changed where we live. We moved from Calgary, Alberta to a literal mountain biking destination that is surrounded by mountain bike trails, gravel roads, does just an unbelievable amount of grooming for fat biking in the wintertime. My whole life is riding bikes. And I don't know what I would be doing had I not just made that decision to go just drop a bunch of money on a mountain bike back in 2020. But yeah.
How's the community different in bike community versus CrossFit?
Well, number one, it's in person largely, and so I think you don't have to deal with the way that people communicate online. It's not. I mean, CrossFit is very capitalistic. It's very, what do you look like? What can you sell? It's hyper political. It feels like a very insecure place. Like, everyone who's in that space is very insecure. Whereas, bicycles, you do it and you catch up with a friend while you ride it. You learn about what people have going on in their life. It's so in person as opposed to online. And that's been, from a mental health standpoint, a massive shift for me. And it's like, right, this is who I am. Not necessarily bicycles, but this is who I am, and I can feel it now. Yeah, it's awesome. One of the things that we work with a lot with the women that we have in our company is empowering them to just pick a physical goal, whether that's a bike ride or running a half marathon or even a 5K. It's just get out and do something with your body instead of fussing so much over what it looks. And that creates this immediate shift, but there's also, we work against the, well, I can't do that, or this bias that women live with. I think just from being girls, women, we kind of all live with the pretty good for a girl mindset, and that starts at such a young age. And I just have to wonder how much that unconscious bias impacts the paths that women go down and that girls go down and choose. And I wonder if that ever showed up for you. I think maybe no, but
Is going on?
I grew up in a household with a single mom and a sister, so I had a little bit of a different social sort of upbringing because there wasn't a father around. There were very few men around, and so it was just sort of not that, oh, well, girls don't do this. It's well, somebody's got to do it, and you're the one who's here to shovel the snow, so you can do it, or you can mow the lawn. And so I ended up, as a kid, I did a lot of what would be traditionally boys' chores, and only because that's who was there. And so in some ways that was a blessing, and in part of losing my father. It was one of the things I didn't have that male-female bias. And so by the time I went to school and did other things, I also had a really strong grandmother. She was the first in her family to go to college. Like, we had a really matriarchal sort of family. And so I didn't go thinking, oh, well, girls don't do this stuff. That's for boys. And so I think that's part of my upbringing.
With that.
And yeah, so, I mean, not that I didn't come across barriers, absolutely, but it was just sort of like, well, I'm here. And then I started to be good at sports, and so then that sort of silenced some of it. It's like, okay, well, yeah, you're good at this. Okay, you can keep doing it. I think, and I did a lot of sports where, you know, cross-country running, but then I also got into climbing and paddling, and especially outrigger canoeing was all women, like super strong women. And so I've been around a lot of strong women and firefighters and athletes. And so I guess if we talk about the solution of how do we change society, I really believe you get women into sports. And because if you learn the physical strength of your body, you start to get the emotional strength of, like, I am strong, I have agency, I can do things. And it's people are like, what? Races are dumb, I don't want to be a race, I'm not an athlete. It's like, races are important because it's a goal.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that you're scared of, you didn't think you could do, and you train for it, you commit to it, and you do it. And then it's way more than your placing that you got at Leadville or your buckle or any time. It's that the prize that you don't see in your hands from your t-shirt or your accomplishment. The pride is in, your real prize is the strength that you earned yourself, that you built yourself. And it's more than physical strength, but it comes from physical strength. And so I really believe our one thing to feel strong ourselves is to do sport. To be physically strong means to be strong as a human being, emotionally, cognitively, intellectually. If anyone here is a creator, I get my best ideas when I'm out running or moving. I'm like, oh, and like my brain like lights up and thinks of good ideas. So we're living proof that if you strengthen your body and you push your body and you push it beyond what you think you could do, then all of a sudden your being can do what you didn't think it could do. And it's the best way I know. We can read all these books, we can do all these things, we can have all these discussions, but I mean quite literally if we go push ourselves on bikes. And it's why goals are important. It's great to go on a social ride, go have fun, socialize, absolutely, but I also think we need to push ourselves and do something that seemed impossible and seemed like we couldn't do it. Because then when you do, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, your baseline then is here. And it bleeds into every part of your life. If you feel physically strong and have agency in your body, it transfers to everything.
What do you tell people, or what would you tell people who have resistance to that themselves? Either they believe that they can't, or they think they're too limited in one way or the other. Like, how do you...
You go show them. I mean, I've seen it over and over again, you know, moms who never did sports and their kids are, you know, they're empty nesters and they learn to ride a bike for the first time at age 50. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, you know, and they're so stoked and the lights go on. And so you can't tell people, you show them and you take them on a ride and you, in a safe, you know, and you're like, yeah, you can do it. And you show them the stuff and you show them tire pressure and you explain how the things work so that people don't feel like an idiot and they get it. You know, I was really resistant to cycling. I've done a lot of sports. People think I'm mostly a cyclist, but I didn't start till 38 riding bikes, and was really resistant to it because I didn't understand the equipment and I wasn't any good at it. And so I hated it because I didn't know what I was doing. I looked like an idiot. Nobody told me about saddles or tire pressure or anything like that. And so the education and breaking down the fear of like this piece of equipment, that's huge. And then once somebody learns that, they're like, oh, okay, I get the shorts, I get the shoes, I can clip in. But when you don't know anything about it, especially as an adult, that's where it's like, no, I don't want to look like an idiot. And so education is really amazing, and taking people on bike rides. And, that's why I started those women's groups. And you see the lights go on, and it doesn't take but 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you see that woman just be like, pew! And you see with girls, you see it at every age. It's not just young kids learning a sport. Like, you see it at every age. And somebody gets on a bike and figures it out. Then all of a sudden, like, okay, see ya. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it does two things. I think as adults, people they stop learning, and that's a huge problem, learning new things, and then they stop playing.
Yeah.
And the bicycle basically checks both of those boxes for people. If they're willing to be uncomfortable and be a beginner at something, which means you have to let go of that ego.
Yeah.
But, what else are you doing with your time? Why is that ego so important, So is that what being a mentor and a leader in the space means to you? It's showing women and people how to do these things that they think they can't?
That's half of it. And then half of it is me being vulnerable enough to be a beginner, to say I don't know, to learn something new, I said it earlier, play both sides of the coin. I'm not always this person who has all the answers, and I'm mentoring and telling all these people what to do. I try to share what I've learned, but not because I'm an expert, only because I want to help people maybe fast track, a little bit, because I did a lot of figuring out myself in my career, my sport, my business, just figuring out by myself. So a lot of my sharing is to help people move a little more quickly than I did. But the flip side, and this is the part I'm really working on, is receiving help, information, stuff that I'm scared of, that I'm nervous of. Should I read another book? Like, I don't know how. I can't do one without Celine. Things like that I'm afraid of. So you can take examples of, someone might be afraid to learn the bike, or it's new for them. There's I guarantee, something in your life that you're kind of, I don't know, that you're afraid of, and can you take what you've learned in sport and transfer that over? And I think that's the part I'm really working on, is to take the confidence and things that you learn in sport and apply them everywhere. So I don't know what being a mentor means. I mean, it's just being me.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else is taken, right?
It's your only option. No, I think that's great. I mean, to create, you have to consume, and that's across like every modality. And so if you want to lean into helping people do things either by showing or by fast tracking or something, like, it almost is beneficial to your cause doing that, to take help from other people in other areas, because it's like, oh, I didn't know that I could work for people in this way, because you've never had people work for you in that way.
Yeah.
So it's bi-directional. I love that.
Good thing.
Yeah. That's all I have. I thought we actually you moved through my notes in a really, like,
did I?
Yeah, it was really
good.
uncanny.
Sweet.
What I appreciate is the way that ended, and you said that you're not setting out to be a mentor or be a leader. You're just you. And I think the best leaders and the best mentors and the people who have the most impact and influence, that's the way that they live their lives. They just are them, and then people are drawn to that, and they follow and they emulate, and the world becomes a better place because of that. So I've only been in this space for a very short time, which, again, I don't know how I ended up in this seat and not someone else, but I'm truly honored for that, and it's immediately apparent the impact that you're having. So thank you.
You're in the seat because you asked.
Yeah.
You're actually like, can we do something? I said, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that's it.
that's my MO, which
Yeah.
Alex will tell you. She's
Yeah.
like, what did you get us into this time? No, but I'm really appreciative of you saying yes in the time, and that we can share this with our community of people, and for some reason people who follow us and like what we have to say. So.
Yeah, big bike event's a good reason to sit down and have a chat. And so I appreciate all of you. I see a lot of head nodding. I see a lot of really awesome people here. And as we go out into the world, make your ripple, make your impact. That's what the gong is about. Someone asked me earlier, like, what's with the gong? I'm like, it's to create a vibration and a ripple. And so that's what you all are going to do when you leave here. And I have to thank Live and Giant for hosting this space, because it's the only shade of the whole entire place, first of all. But also, they were really supportive of our Girls Mentor program and bicycles and our scholarship program. And I'm really grateful for for the support that they do to get more people on bikes, and especially Liv has obviously been for women by women forever, and really leading the way in that. And you saw the Tour de France Femme this year. Yeah, and like you said, it's not new.
No.
It's been around for a while. But yeah, next up on the agenda here, we do have Celine and I are going to be doing a talk at 3 o'clock, right before the rider meeting on Brainstorm, which is their new podcast series on cognitive health and concussion that's coming out. A 4-part series. We'll have a couple other athletes to talk about their experiences. And again, we're not experts in that field. I've gone through a concussion that was pretty gnarly and pretty hard, and Celine and Feisty are helping me tell the story to bring the conversation to the table. Just like bringing this women's conversation to the table. This is how change happens. It's happening right here, which is really cool and really exciting. And I love seeing the guys in the room, and I love seeing, it's important because we're all in this together. We're not pushing anyone out of the space. We're making the pie bigger. As she said, let's make a big ass pie, right? All right, thanks you guys. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, thank you. That was really great. Thank you again.
Good job.
You too, but you always do a good job.
You know, one of the things that you really see when you're at RPI is it's a different event. One, there's 40% of our riders are women. That's not enough, but it's getting there. And you know, most events in the United States operate at around a 28% number, which is actually stunningly low.